I sat down with Duquesne Athletic Director Dave Harper to discuss the NCAA's decision to allow some scholarship athletes to receive stipends beginning in 2015. First off, we discussed where this idea originated from and how the Atlantic 10 Conference decided to implement the new rule.
When they passed this cost of attendance legislation, which I think is well intended, I think it's a reasonable expense. I think the idea was good. The Atlantic 10 then said, okay, with our member institutions, of which Duquesne is one, obviously, they said, well, where are we going to implement this and with what sports? So they decided to do it for basketball.
I later discussed with Dave the good and the bad of the new rule.
A couple things about that. I think it's very well intended because there are a lot of kids that, you know, their financial award covers so much, but they don't have the means to, they can't work, they can't do these other things. So the thing that's difficult about it is you have some schools that it's $7,000. You've got some schools where it's $1,500. And then the other thing that I don't think was, maybe it just burst upon us and we're kind of learning how to deal with it now, but you know, a lot of these kids are just getting a check, and is it going to the intended purpose? You know, are they buying a TV or are they really doing the food? And it, you know, so what we've done here at Duquesne is make sure that we have people talking to our student athletes about their disbursements, so we don't give it to them all at once. We disperse it and say this is what it should be used for. So
Harper then discussed with me how giving out these stipends to scholarship athletes impacts the university and the athletic department financially.
Is the expense of the stipends a detriment to our revenue model? No. Okay. No, it's not that big of an impact. And our goal here at Duquesne is to grow our revenues. So anything we would target from a revenue type of model and a funding model would be, all right, how can we help offset capital expenditures? How can we offset things? And the cost of attendance would be more of a scholarship operational expenditure.
After Harper acknowledged that the stipends weren't negatively impacting the school in any way, I had to go on and ask him whether he thought athletes should get more than they do currently.
I think it's right in line. Because when you look at their schedules and when you look at what they're doing, I think it's a reasonable, if the institutions, which they all have done, okay, this is the real cost of attending, and we're awarding up to that, then it gives them that extra money to be able to get the extra meal when the cafeteria is not open, or you know, a winter coat if they don't have one. You know, all those different things that they would need. I think it's reasonable. And the higher it goes, you know, my biggest concern is you want the intention of the rule, which is student athlete welfare, their health, their basic necessities, their meals, extra meals. I want to make sure it's going to that.
Right. Now that student athletes are being allowed to receive extra money, it just begged the question of whether this is the first step towards paying collegiate athletes.
It's been, you know, judges, or whether it's been key conference officials, the NCAA. I think there's a fine line of amateurism that no one wants to cross. And I think, you know, the paying and the marketing rights, I think that would just erode at the notion of amateurism. And I think that's what a lot of people have said. And so I think, could there be some more benefits for student athletes? If you look at what they're talking about, student athlete welfare issues that are emerging, it's, you know, it's the amount of time they're spending. So, you know, looking at, all right, what is the real amount of time Division I athletes are putting in? Then you look at issues of health and well-being, so insurance coverage, and you know, the Pac-12 has a unique thing where they're providing insurance to student athletes through the age of 26 to cover other injuries and follow-up, and you know, so there's so many issues that are around what I'll call student athlete well-being. That's really, I think, where the next push is going to come. I think the actual physical payment really pries at that notion of amateurism.
And there you have it. Got to take a trip inside the mind of Duquesne Athletic Director Dave Harper in regard to his thoughts on the new NCAA stipend rule.